Right, here we go. Back again. Back again. Alright? And today I wanted to cover a second wave. Right? It's talk of it in the UK is everywhere today. And of course, by second wave, I mean a second wave of deception or lies, if you like. And yeah, would you believe it? Once again, it's all down to this wonderful thing, computer modelling. Hip hip hooray, right? How lucky are we that we have these computers that just assume everything and then we live our lives by it, right? How wonderful, right? And what it is mainly is this report that has came out from the Lancet, and this is what all the hype is about. And the Lancet is a weekly peer-reviewed general medical journal. It is among the world's oldest and best known general medical journals. Right, so it's the go-to for all you need to know medical-wise, and its publisher is the company Elsevier, right, who we will touch on as well. But sticking with the report from the Lancet, who we have touched on before, it says determining the optimal strategy for reopening schools, the impact of test and trace interventions, and the risk of occurrence of a second COVID-19 epidemic wave in the UK. A modelling study. Fantastic, right? Great stuff. So, what does it say? Well, it says, to begin with, it explains a bit of the background, right? By saying, as lockdown measures to slow the spread of severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2 infection begin to ease in the UK, it is important to assess the impact of any changes in policy, including school reopening and border relaxation of physical distancing measures. We aimed to use an individual-based model to predict the impact of two possible strategies for reopening schools to all students in the UK from September 2020, in combination with different assumptions about relaxation of physical distancing measures and the scale up of testing. Right. Now, I don't want to bore you too much with the method or the process of this modelling, so we will jump to the findings, right? And it says, with increased levels of testing between 59% and 87% of symptomatic people tested at some point during an active SARS-CoV-2 infection, depending on the scenario, and effective contact tracing and isolation, an epidemic rebound might be prevented. Right. So already you can see that they are wanting a high amount of tests carried out to prevent a second wave of deception, right? And it continues, assuming 68% of contacts could be traced, we estimate that 75% of individuals with symptomatic infection would need to be tested and positive cases isolated if schools return full-time in September, or 65% if a part-time rota system were used. If only 40% of contacts could be traced, these figures would increase to 87 and 75% respectively. However, without these levels of testing and contact tracing, reopening of schools together with gradual relaxing of the lockdown measures are likely to induce a second wave that would peak in December 2020 if schools open full time in September, and in February 2021 if a part-time rota system were adopted. Right, so yeah, if they don't carry out enough tests and they don't isolate enough positive cases and they don't trace enough cases, then yeah, there is likely going to be a second wave. And it continues, in either case, the second wave would result in the R rising above 1 and a resulting second wave of infections 2.0, 2.3 times the size of the original COVID-19 wave. Shock horror. When infectiousness of children and young adults was varied from 100% to 50% of that of older ages, we still found that a comprehensive and effective test, trace, isolate strategy would be required to avoid a second COVID-19 wave. Of course it is. So the key to avoiding a second wave is test and trace, right? And isolate. What a surprise that is. And to summarise, it says, to prevent a second COVID-19 wave, relaxation of the physical distancing, including reopening of schools in the UK, must be accompanied by large-scale, population-wide testing of symptomatic individuals and effective tracing of their contacts, followed by isolation of diagnosed individuals. So yeah, it's just as we thought, really. And if not enough people get contacted and traced, then yeah, I would imagine they are going to pull the same stuff again. And yeah, I can tell you right now, they are going to pull it again, without a doubt. And it does say as well, at the bottom of this article, from the Lancet, the go-to, the ever trustworthy, right, that in terms of funding, there you go, none. They get nothing from no one, right? Sure, but like we said, Lancet are owned by these dudes. Elsevier, I think is how you pronounce it. Elsevier. Elsevier, maybe? We'll go with Elsevier, right? Non-solus, which seemingly means not alone, right? And they were founded 1880. Revenue 2.54 billion in 2018. So you're not short of a few quid. Net income over $600 million. $600 million, right? Number of employees, 6,900. So yeah, some interesting numbers and plenty of cash. So with that in mind, surely Bill Gates ain't connected to these dudes as well. Well, yep, you guessed it, he fucking is. And from Elsevier themselves, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Elsevier and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have entered into an agreement which ensures authors publishing in Elsevier journals are compliant with the Gates Foundation open access policy. Right. So yeah, it's pretty evident then that whoever is pulling the strings behind the Gates Foundation is also pulling the strings behind Elsevier. And yeah, I think we can all guess which sort of families it may be, right? And it then even says a publication fee must be paid to publish an article, gold open access. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will pay Elsevier directly from a central fund on behalf of its grantees. Grantees should not pay these fees out of their budget or seek reimbursement from the foundation. Rather, grantees are asked to use Chronons, right? A new service developed by the foundation which manages payment of these fees from a central budget directly to Elsevier. See the Gates Foundation website for more details. So yeah, money, money, money. And yeah, it looks like the Gates Foundation pays Elsevier for the publications or journals, if you like. So yeah, interesting stuff. And once again, you can clearly see how it's all connected. Here we have Lancet producing these journals, while on the other hand, being paid by Bill Gates, who is pushing, of course, the wonderful vaccine that we are all waiting on. Our hero, the ever charitable Bill and Melinda Gates, right? And of course, the Rockefellers, they are always 100% guaranteed in the background. They are always there, no matter what, right throughout history. And if it ain't the Rockefellers, then it's the Rothschilds. And yeah, that is a guarantee. And as you can see, the Rockefeller Foundation is connected to the Lancet, and the Rockefeller University is also connected to Elsevier and the Lancet and all the other scientific journals. They are always there. And it should come as no surprise, really, because we've touched on it before. And it is, of course, the Good Club, right? They're called the Good Club, and they want to save the world. Sure they do, our heroes. And yeah, this was from The Guardian, of all people, in 2009. And we touched on this before, the meeting that was called by Gates, Buffett and Rockefeller. He would have been at the head of the table, I'd imagine. One of the Rockefeller family members. It was at the President's House of Rockefeller University, right, Upper East Side of Manhattan. So I'd imagine it was the Rockefellers that were running the show. And between the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, they basically control the world, right? They control all the banks. So yeah, you might think, yeah, Bill Gates has got all this money, but hey, he's just borrowing that money. He can't spend all the money that he's got. It just wouldn't happen, right? And he doesn't have all that money that he's worth. The majority of that is just utter fucking BS. But yeah, he will have a lot of money because he works for an evil entity who, if you do right by them, they will make sure you get paid and paid well, right? So yeah, hence the term selling your soul, right? And I'm not sure if many of you have seen this painting here. This is, of course, the Hall of Mirrors, right? It should really be called the Hall of Smoke and Mirrors and Deception, right? Because yeah, that's what it is, basically. And this is where the peace treaty got signed, the signing of the peace in the Hall of Mirrors, Versailles, 28th of June, 1919. But of course, after that, there was no peace, and still today we have wars everywhere. But this place was in ruin, basically, and it controlled and held a lot of historical value in terms of what had happened throughout the wars. And yeah, our friend John D. Rockefeller, he is a patron of the Palace of Versailles, 1874, 1960, and twice he donated part of his fortune, right? So yeah, he gave them quite a lot of money in them days, at least. And as you can see, it says, on the 30th of June 1923, John D. Rockefeller and his wife Abby attended a party organised at the Palace of Versailles to raise funds for the restoration of the estate. The philanthropist was shocked to discover the historic royal residence in critical condition. with its statues showing the weight of the years, its parquet floors in a state of collapse, its gliding losing its lustre. Right, so the place was in ruin and it was falling to bits and basically going to collapse. And yeah, they held a party, and in strolls John D. Rockefeller with his pockets bulging and a big grin on his face, with him saying, yeah, hey, I'll give you the money, right? But yeah, the place now belongs to me. And yeah, it's basically a vault of information throughout history, chock full of books that me and you would probably never get to read. Not anymore, not today, that's for sure. So yeah, you can see why the Rockefellers wanted their hands on this building. And it's the same story throughout history with lots of different places. And I wouldn't even be surprised if the Rockefellers played a hand in its demise, so they could then roll up and say, we'll save the day. Right, that wouldn't surprise me one bit. But we'll leave the Rockefellers for this moment, but we will touch on them a sec. But this is breaking news today, right? And it's coming from the wonderful WHO. The WHO. Well, who are they? Well, going by their headquarters and their logo, you would think they were some sort of James Bond villain or some sort of baddie, and this was their complex, right? But yeah, it's the World Health Organization. Here too, of course, save the day. Fantastic. And as you can see, breaking news. WHO interviewed Wuhan scientists according to first details from China visit. Right, so the WHO have been in to investigate, right? And this is, the article is from Reuters, and it says, as you can see, 4th of August 2020, WHO says China team interviewed Wuhan scientists over virus origins. Now, that's not a question, it's just WHO says, right? WHO says. The WHO says the virus most likely came from bats and probably had another intermediary animal host. Right, so I wonder what they'll come out and say that was. Will it be a cat or a dog or a rat or a mouse? Right, expect that to come by the sounds of it. It then says, WHO Emergencies Chief Mike Ryan said on Monday that surprises were possible. Right, so what kind of surprise might they have in store? How exciting, right? And it says the fact that fire alarm was triggered in Wuhan doesn't necessarily mean that is where the disease crossed from animals to humans, he said. Right, so it could be the case that they come out and say that it is spreading from multiple areas across the world. Right, so look out for that, because I'd imagine that's what they're going to say. Right, so yeah, watch this space, right? The ever wonderful WHO, of course. And if you go back to even the 1940s, you will find that the Rockefeller Foundation has a nice and cosy relationship with the WHO. What a surprise, right? It's like I said, they are always there in the background. They are behind just about everything. And yeah, if you want somewhere to start in terms of pinning this pandemic and the current situation of where we are globally, then yeah, look no further than the Rockefellers and Bill and Melinda Gates. Let's start with them. And hey, who knows? if we can cut the head off the snake, then yeah, things might begin to get a bit better, right? And yeah, I'll leave that for today. And that is about it. Bye-bye.